Hi, nice to meet you. So, Rosamund Pike says that Rosamund Pike's character says that words are important, especially how we use them. So, I am asking you, how important are words and how should we use them?
Well, they're very important. Words have meaning, and the way that you actually use the words mean very many different things to different people. So I agree, very important.
Yeah, and the Aes Sedai have a way with words where they never tell a lie, but they can get around that by wordplay, so to speak.
Yeah.
So the series, hi, by the way.
Hi.
The series, based on a massive series of books. How did you go about just adapting it for the small screen?
Well, I think we can safely say that Rafe Judkins, our wonderful showrunner, taking this massive adaptation and weaving his way through all the characters, the story, the mythology, and making it, wonderful for the fans and also accessible for those people who haven't read the books before. It's his writing.
It's interesting how there are powers in this world, but the power of mind is really important. So how did you work on both the psychological aspect of your characters and then the action scenes?
I think that all the action is driven by, the character motivation that comes from a place of, from on behalf of Moiraine, wanting to protect these young people that don't necessarily understand what is happening to them, and they are sort of coming into their own, as sort of young adults, and she's there to guide them. And so I think there's a protective quality to her relationship with the young cast, and then there's also a desire on the part of the young cast to, discover the world, and I think both of those things motivate the action pretty well.
Absolutely. You bring about an interesting point that this is a really lovely blend of familiar faces and new faces. How did the casting process work?
When we started a long time ago, and obviously we auditioned Rosamund. Obviously we were thrilled to get Rosamund. I mean, she's just perfect in the role and has been amazing and loves the book series. The casting of the younger actors, we went on for a long time and ended up in, we've got a wonderful casting director called Kelly Valentine Hendry, who went all over the world for the casting of this. As everybody knows, Madeline's from Australia, Zoe's New Zealand, Yosha's from Holland, Marcus is from the UK. And then it was chemistry. We got them all together in a room and got them all to read together, because they're going to be together for a long time on this journey.
There's an interesting point that he's passing our knowledge to younger generations. How did you work in that sense for this TV show? Because we have many ages characters, but passing on knowledge is really important. So how did you work on that point?
Well, it's sort of inherent in the wheel of time, where the wheel turns and one age passes into another. And so I think, you go back to that, all things are sort of cyclical, and a version of this has happened before, a version of this will happen again. And it's the choices that the characters make, as influenced by the older generations that they meet along the way that, determine, the action that you see unfold.
And they believe in reincarnation. So there's a sense that, they've been here before, they've seen it before. And we do play off that.
It's interesting you mentioned that, because the series itself was supposedly based on Taoism and Buddhism. How sensitive were you guys in adapting this and making sure that you know, it's not desensitive to those religions that the series is based on?
I think they had a real understanding and appreciation of that in the writers' room. That's really, you know, a question for Rafe and our writers that, you know, were in the room talking about all these big themes, and also as it relates to the, you know, the plot and the personal character development. But I think those themes were in mind quite a bit.
Absolutely, they were.
One character says to Rosamund Pike's character, "You are a woman not used to hear the word no." That character is in the book, okay, but did you made her more like a contemporary woman? How did you work on her?
I think the women in the books and the way that we portrayed them, which is one thing that I love, is that they're all strong women with individual characters. It's you know, it's very much all ages, young to old, and there's a character for everybody to identify with. If you're a woman, there's a character in the books that you identify with, elements in all of them.
Yeah, I also find the gender politics about woman versus man really interesting. Was there anything that you drew on from our own history to help inspire the show?
I think it was interesting to just see how when one group has a power that the other groups around them don't, sort of how that shapes, you know, civilizations as they've evolved around the world. Whether it's gunpowder or, you know, steel or, you know, other things like that. And so I think, you know, with that in mind, seeing what this organization of women, the Aes Sedai, you know, being the sole, you know, group to use this magic and the power they wield, I think it has a lot of parallels to actual history as well. I think Jordan was inspired by a lot of those parallels.
And the theme of balance is there the whole time. So, you know, we've always kept that in mind, the sense of balance and keeping the balance and trying to maintain balance, you know, between men and women.
Fantasy is a genre that for ages was unearthing, but in the last 20 years, it's so popular. So are you glad, first of all, of that? And do you believe that fantasy is the genre that today can best portray our world, our society?
I think so. I think that fantasy, number one, allows you to escape into the themes of these characters much easier than something that takes place in our world, especially our world with technology and cell phones and the internet. There's so many things that are sort of barriers to escape into a narrative, in a fantasy world like this, I think is much easier to do that.
We've spoken a lot about the heroes, but there's so many interesting villains here, which go from like the monstrous troglodytes to the, you know, the power, I can't remember the names, the questioners, and
the white cloaks,
white cloaks, and the Aes Sedai, they're even villainous as well. How do you go about making just a whole like menagerie of villains?
Well, it's again, it's a balance thing. It's a sort of good and evil in everything and everyone, and nobody being, you know, exactly what they seem when you meet them. Trollocs accepted, probably, but there, and the Fades, obviously. Again, in Rafe's writing, you know, I keep going back to that. It's creating these characters who have a sense of good and evil, and you know, in everything and everyone that's on screen, from the white cloaks to the Trollocs.
Speaking about villains, it's interesting how in this story, each character can be a hero or a villain in a certain way. So in your opinion, what makes a villain?
I think a villain is we allow the audience to kind of make that decision. I think every character is portrayed very even-handed, whereas even the villains in this story, I think, believe that they are doing the right thing. They're not sitting there saying, okay, I'm doing something specifically evil here. They all think they're in service of what their definition of good is to an extent. Maybe not the Fades, but I think that's sort of how I think the writing is approached the villains.
Absolutely. Forsaken as well. I mean, they are, they've got a mixture. They believe that they're doing the right thing in their way. Even if we see them as villains, they believe they're doing the right thing.
This show, even 6 episodes in, has some really impressive battle sequences, which blend the choreography of like sword fighting and like magic. What goes into like the production and the development and the choreography of these scenes?
Oh, a lot. Our cast, everybody arrives and is with our stunt team and spends a long time training, learning to ride horses. We had a movement coach help us with the channeling so that it looked organic rather than, necessarily like a Marvel character shooting out from their hands. So yeah, a huge amount of prep.
How important was the creature design, and how did you work on it?
It was hugely important. We were fortunate enough to have Nick Dudman, who has worked on some incredible creature films, not the least of which Harry Potter, and his team was able to construct beautiful, realistic looking Trollocs and other things that when the actors, I think it was very important to Rafe, when the actors were on set, that they were interacting with something that actually existed versus the technique that a lot of productions use by just completely doing it CGI, where that would essentially be a tennis ball or somebody wrapped in a
guy in green suit.
A guy in a green suit. So it really felt real for everybody, and I think that was a real benefit.
Yeah, and we enhanced them with visual effects as well. So it was a combination of real stunt people in suits with visual effects to give it the extra. You believe they're there, and they were.
So a massive world, so many different fractions, monsters, villains, heroes. If you were part of Wheel of Time, where would you see yourself?
Well, I love Nynaeve. I'd be sort of, I'd be one of the characters at the beginning, and I love her sort of warmth and caring, but she's kick-ass, So I'd be with her on her journey.
Yeah, I'd be Lan, swinging the sword. That sounds like fun.
Okay, thank you so much.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you. It's been lovely to talk to you. Good luck with the
you
show.
Too. Thank
amazing.
You. I'm thrilled. Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, you're watching Hey You Guys.
Hey You Guys, huh?
Hey, you guys.
Is that from the Goonies?
It is indeed, yes.
Nice.
Hey!